Most companies have spent years building detailed operating models, massive blueprints that map every process, every handoff, every decision point. They treat them like documentation. I've sat through enough transformation programs to know how this ends. Here's what nobody's saying. Those models aren't static artifacts anymore. They're instructions. With agentic AI, your operating model becomes executable code, a living system that doesn't just describe how work happens, but actually runs it. The shift isn't subtle. You're moving from documentation that describes work to code that performs it. Your operating model stops being a reference guide and becomes the machine that runs the business, reading context, making decisions, improving itself without waiting for the next offsite. Here's the roadmap. First, the problem most organizations are living with right now, the static blueprint that sits in a drawer. Then the solution, how to turn that model into a real operating system. After that, we meet the agents who execute it, build the guardrails that keep them honest, and walk through a 90-day plan you can actually use. Finally, we'll look at what executable really means when it's running in production. I've worked in enterprise technology long enough to see the pattern. You run the workshops, you build the PowerPoint, dozens of slides mapping processes, handoffs, decision rights, immaculate architecture, and then it sits in SharePoint like a time capsule. It can't enforce itself. It can't adapt when reality shifts. And it's out of date before the ink dries, or whatever the digital equivalent of that is. This is the gap we're here to close. So how do we fix this? Stop treating the operating model like a museum piece. Start treating it like an engine, one that can read, decide, and run without you. Here's where it clicks. Management sees an operating model and thinks documentation, a map of how things work. Engineering sees the same model and thinks specification, a set of instructions a machine can parse and execute. That's not a subtle difference. That's the entire game. Once you see your model as executable code, everything changes. How to turn your operating model into executable AI code. So how do you actually do this? 3 steps. First, translate your operating model into machine-readable format, a schema. Think of it as writing down the official rules of the game. Second, that schema becomes the single source of truth. No more conflicting versions floating around in different decks. Third, and this is where it gets real, AI agents use that schema as their instruction manual. They don't just reference it, they execute it. If your operating model is now the operating system, the agents are the apps running on top of it. Time to meet your new workforce. This isn't one monolithic brain doing everything. It's a team of specialists, each with a clear job. The planner breaks goals into steps. The executor calls your systems and APIs. The reviewer checks quality and compliance. The liaison knows when to pull a human in. The observer logs everything so the system learns. I've built security systems for environments under constant attack. You learn fast. Distributed beats centralized. A network of focused agents will always outperform one trying to do it all. And who runs this team? You'll hear it called a super agent or orchestrator. Don't picture some all-knowing AI chief executive. Think compiler and scheduler. It reads your operating model, the schema we just built, and assembles the right specialists for the task. Then it routes the work and makes the whole thing run. The moment you mention agents taking real action, every CIO in the room wakes up. What about risk? What about compliance? What about the thing that goes wrong at 3 a.m.? Fair questions. Let's talk guardrails. The answer is policy as code. Instead of a compliance manual on a shelf, you write the rules, approval limits, compliance checks, boundaries, directly into the system itself. Before any agent takes action, it asks, "Can I do this?" and gets a real-time yes or no based on policies you've already encoded. This is proactive compliance, not cleanup. The guardrail isn't a person reviewing tickets after the fact. It's the system saying no before the mistake happens. Here's the part most people miss. The agents don't just act, they see. The operating model becomes a digital twin, a live map showing every workflow's current state in real time. Process mining creates verifiable, auditable traces of everything that happens. It's brilliant, really. Observability baked in from the start. You get learning and control at the same time, which turns out to be the only way this works at scale. So how do you make this actually get smarter? Not in theory, in production. 3 types of rewards. First, verify intermediate steps using system logs. Did the agent follow the right sequence? Second, track real business outcomes. Invoice paid, ticket closed, contract signed. Third, measure quality through human or AI review. The whole point is to measure the real thing, not some proxy metric that's easy to game. I've seen enough dashboards turn green while the business stays stuck. This is different. You're rewarding what actually matters, which turns out to be harder and more valuable than it sounds. This all sounds clean on paper, but where do you actually start? Let's talk about the first 90 days, the part everyone skips in the deck. Pick one workflow. Model it out. Week 2, week 3. Still one workflow. Build it in a sandbox where nothing breaks if you're wrong. Then, and only then, limited production. Human checks at every turn. The transformation roadmap is usually a 12-month plan to start planning. This is the opposite. Controlled, repeatable, and actually designed to ship. Once it works, you package the pattern. Now the second workflow takes half the time. The third, less. That's how you scale without the theater. So what's the payoff? You get a company where the operating model isn't documentation anymore. It's alive, it's running, it reads the world, makes calls, and adjusts itself without waiting for the next strategy offsite. Tobuin from static blueprint to living operating system. Here's where it clicks. Change management used to mean months of PowerPoints and stakeholder alignment. Now it's just deploying a new skill to your agents. Done. Risk and compliance? You're not auditing after the fact anymore. Policy enforcement happens in real time, baked into every decision. And my favorite part, improvement isn't a quarterly review where everyone pretends to care about last quarter's metrics. It's a continuous loop, fed by actual execution data, running whether you're in the room or not. The operating model just became operational. Klaring, how to build agentic AI without breaking everything. But as you're getting started, watch out for a few critical traps. First, Copilot theater. AI assistants that look impressive but have no real authority to do anything. Second, make rewards transparent. Auditable links from every outcome back to a specific action. Third, give agents proper system identities. Don't hack permissions. And finally, design for reuse from day one. Don't build a bunch of bespoke one-offs that can't scale. Let me be clear, this is not PowerPoint fantasy. Multi-agent frameworks, policy as code engines, process mining tools, they're all here, mature, and shipping. The core technologies you need already exist. This isn't a moonshot. It's a practical next step in how companies actually run. The question isn't whether it's possible, it's whether you're building it. When your operating model becomes executable code. So here's the question worth chewing on. If your operating model is now the spec, the actual code, what's the first workflow you'd trust enough to compile and hand to agents next quarter? And more importantly, what reward signals would you use to prove with hard data that it's actually better than the old way? The future of your operation starts with that answer. Your competitors are already thinking about this. You should be too. Follow for more.